The Pokemon world is in a state of shock right now. Given past history and various hints left by the Pokemon Company, many mistakenly believed that the next game in the series would be Pokemon Z, but boy were we completely wrong. Instead, on the very day before the franchise's 20th anniversary, Pokemon Sun and Moon were announced, leaving fans in complete disbelief. The thing is, the fact that these games are coming out at some point is just about all the Pokemon Company has said about them thus far. With regards to actual information on the game, we've pretty much got nothing as of yet. Which, besides being a huge tease, leaves for tons of speculation as to what Pokemon Sun and Moon will be like. So today, I'm gonna be giving you guys 5 major predictions for Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon. Prediction number 1. At least 100 new Pokemon will be introduced in these games. This might seem like a bold prediction at the outset, but when you think about it, it really isn't. For the first part of this prediction, I want to make the argument that Mega Evolutions will not play as large a role in these games as in X and Y due to various hints and indications made by the Pokemon Company. Consider, for instance, the following quote from the magazine We Love Pokemon, which details an interview with Ken Sugimori, the art director of the Pokemon franchise. When asked what the next generation of Pokemon games will be like if such a plan exists, Sugimori commented that they will not add more layers of complexity, but rather will revert to simplicity. The implication here is pretty obvious. Mega Evolutions are a mechanic that added complexity in X and Y, meaning if Game Freak is reverting to simplicity in Sun and Moon, they're probably going to at least cut down on them quite a bit. With this in mind, consider the following fact. Every single generation up until Gen 5, including Gen 5, has introduced at least 100 new Pokemon. Gen 6 was the first to violate this trend, only introducing 72. However, for argument's sake, let's include all 48 Mega Evolutions of Gen 6 in this number. Then you have a total of 72 plus 48 Mega Evolutions, which equals 120 new Pokemon. The argument I'm trying to make here is that if you take into account Mega Evolutions, then technically Generation 6 did introduce over 100 new Pokemon. Now, this does oversimplify things a little, since you can't necessarily consider Mega Evolutions as new Pokemon, but the point is that Generation 6 didn't introduce drastically fewer Pokemon or anything, it's just that Mega Evolutions took the place of a lot of potential new Pokemon. However, given what I said earlier regarding Mega Evolutions, they're likely to play a much smaller role in Sun and Moon. So, a lot of the art and development resources that went into making Mega Evolutions for X and Y will now be directed towards making new non-Mega Evolution Pokemon, meaning we can probably expect at least 100 new Pokemon in Sun and Moon. Prediction number 2. The region will be based on Southeast Asia. There are pretty much 3 pieces of major evidence for why the region of Sun and Moon will be based on Southeast Asia. First, and perhaps most importantly, take a look here at the flag of Malaysia, a country in Southeast Asia. What do you all see? Well, there's obviously a sun and a moon on there. Now, technically that's actually a 12-pointed star and not a sun, but I mean, come on, they're basically the same thing. Anyways, my claim is that the reason why the games are named Sun and Moon is in part because they're either based on Malaysia specifically or on Southeast Asia as a whole. The second piece of evidence is this real-life hotel you see here. Now, this hotel, called the Raffles Hotel, is a real hotel in Singapore, a city-state that lies right next to Malaysia. And it turns out that one of the screenshots from the Sun and Moon trailer is of an in-game hotel that's modeled after the Raffles Hotel. Taking a look at a side-by-side comparison, this is pretty easy to see. Obviously, Singapore is located in Southeast Asia, so this in-game hotel is indicative that the region for Sun and Moon is going to be based off of Southeast Asia. Finally, take a look at the religious breakdown of Malaysia's population. Clearly, Islam and Buddhism dominate the religious landscape, both having a larger following than all of the other religions combined. They both also have a large presence across Southeast Asia in general, especially Buddhism. Now, it turns out that the Sun and Moon are incredibly important symbols in both of these religions. Taking a look at the symbol of Islam, we see a star and crescent moon, which I claim is analogous to the titles of Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon. Moreover, the moon is an important symbol in Buddhism because the majority of important events in the Buddha's life occurred underneath a full moon. So what I think is that Pokemon came up with the names for Sun and Moon in part because they're modeling the region for these games after Southeast Asia, which is dominated by two religions that value the Sun and Moon as important symbols. Finally, before moving on, I want to make a quick consideration of some other possibilities. First of all, many people have been claiming that the next region will be based on either South or Central America, specifically because a new bird Pokemon shown off in the trailer is apparently based off of a tropical bird from South America. Now, I personally think this is a bit of a jump, but there is still quite a bit of merit to the idea overall. In fact, I'd say that behind Southeast Asia, somewhere in Central or South America is the likeliest location for the region of Sun and Moon to be based off of. The second possibility that has been suggested is Hawaii, mainly because a screenshot was released showing off yellow fire trucks, which are a thing in Hawaii. This one is also a very good suggestion, and while there are some minor problems with it, such as the fact that we've already had a region based off of US territory in Unova, I still think it's a fairly likely possibility. So to sum things up, I think the region for Sun and Moon is going to be based off of Southeast Asia, but Central or South America, as well as Hawaii, are also very likely possibilities. Prediction number 3. Real-life mythology will play a more significant role in these games than ever before. In all the previous Pokemon games, there have been subtle hints to real-life mythology and stories. For instance, Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde are based off Norse mythology, specifically 3 creatures that reside in Yggdrasil, the World Tree. Zekrom, Reshiram, and Kyurem are based off the concepts of Yin, Yang, and Wuji, respectively. Finally, Zapdos is based on the Thunderbird from Pacific Northwestern Native American lore, and Moltres is based off the Phoenix. So, real-life mythology playing a role in Pokemon games isn't exactly something new. The thing is, my claim isn't just that mythology will play a role in Sun and Moon, but rather that it will play a far more significant role than ever before in any other Pokemon game. To the point where the Pokemon, the plot, and even the very nature of the game is brimming with references to real-life myths. These references have been rather subtle in the past, but I say that will no longer be the case in Sun and Moon. And why do I say this? Well, just take a look at the titles of these games and compare them to older versions. What do you guys notice? Personally, the first thing I notice is that unlike previous games, the Sun and the Moon are important symbols for human beings of any denomination, much more so than any sort of letter or color. In my opinion, they've chosen 2 entities that carry distinct mythological significance as the symbols for these games, precisely because the mythological connections are going to be blown out of proportion in Sun and Moon. Prediction number 4. A new type will be introduced. First, I want you guys to take a look at a side-by-side comparison of the logo for Pokemon Moon and the logo of Dark types. The similarities between the two are pretty clear, which has led some people to the conclusion that the legendary for Pokemon Moon will be a Dark type, and I think this is a pretty good bet. But more than that, since the legendary for Pokemon Sun would likely have to be the opposite of the Dark type, a lot of people have jumped to the conclusion that a new Light type will be introduced, and the Sun legendary will be of the Light type. Now, I won't deny that there's some merit here, which is why I felt this was worth mentioning, but I personally still think it's a bit of a jump. What's much more likely in my eyes is a Celestial type, because it would fit really well with the theme of Sun and Moon, and also makes sense in light of all the space Pokemon that we have already. Also, if you guys recall back to X and Y, one of the main reasons why the Fairy type was introduced was to balance the type system a little bit more. Now, while I personally say this was pretty successful in improving things, the typing system is still a little bit unbalanced. Specifically in the fact that Ice and Rock types remain a bit disadvantaged, and Ghost types can be a bit overpowered at times. But if Game Freak introduced a new type, this could serve to balance things a little bit more, and also increase the variety in Pokemon a little more as well. So, regardless of what my personal feelings are on a new type, I think Game Freak will introduce one in Sun and Moon for all those reasons. Prediction number 5. We're gonna be able to go back to Kalos in Sun and Moon. Now, this is probably my biggest prediction as of yet. What I'm trying to say here essentially is that in Sun and Moon you'll of course have the main region, which is going to give you tons of stuff to do in the main game, but then in the after game we'll have the opportunity to revisit Kalos, collect badges, and perhaps challenge the Elite Four there as well. So pretty much, Sun and Moon are going to be exactly like Gold and Silver, except instead of going back to Kanto, we'll be able to go back to Kalos. Why do I say this? Well, there are two main reasons. First of all, Kalos really hasn't had its full time to shine as of yet. Every single generation so far has had a sequel game except Kalos. In Gen 1 we had Yellow, in 2nd Gen we had Crystal, in 3rd we had Emerald, in 4th we had Platinum, and in 5th we of course had Black and White too. But it seems as though Pokemon Z isn't going to end up happening, which almost seems a bit unfair. However, one way Game Freak can make up for this and give Kalos its full due is by allowing us to access the Kalos region in the aftergame of Sun and Moon. This would not only solve the Kalos conundrum, but would also make sense in light of the fact that the last time Game Freak did this with the 2nd gen games, it was very well received. More importantly though, there's one massive loose end which I think increases the probability of us revisiting Kalos in Sun and Moon tenfold, and that is Zygarde. Remember those Zygarde forms that were teased around 5 months ago? Zygarde Cell, Core, Dog, and Complete form? Well, if Sun and Moon don't allow us to go back to Kalos, then what in the hell is the point of those forms? Game Freak needs to release them at some point, and it was hinted that they would become the subject of a major plot point in a future Pokemon game. It makes absolutely no sense for Pokemon to just announce these forms and then do nothing with them. Meaning the only options are a Pokemon Z version in the future, which I very much doubt at this point, or Kalos is somehow tied in with Sun and Moon. If I had to choose, I would definitely go with the latter, which is exactly why I'm making this prediction. Well, alright folks, that is pretty much going to do it for this video. As always, if you enjoyed, be sure to drop me a like down below and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more Pokemon videos in the future. Also, be sure to let me know your thoughts on my predictions down in the comments. Do you agree with most of them? Do you disagree? Or do you absolutely hate them in general? Otherwise, I hope you all have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video.